Here are the 3 signs of a psychologically mature man. And remember that the psychological age of a man and his physical age are only loosely connected. The first sign is that he's learned how to sit in the fire of his own life. He's no longer running from emotional discomfort. He has learned and has the capacity to be able to be with his life fully. So because a psychologically mature man has learned how to be with the discomfort of his own emotional experience, when experiences arise, whether it be with friends, colleagues, his partner, because he's sat in the fire of his own life and he's dealt with uncomfortable emotions inside of himself, when uncomfortable emotions arise in other people, which they naturally will, your partner is going to have reactions and be triggered. Your team are going to have difficult days of loss or difficulty or stress in their lives, and as are your friends. This is a part of the human experience, but a psychologically mature man has been initiated and he's able to be with uncomfortable emotions. He's learned that as a skill set. Therefore, he has the capacity when things arise in his life, whether it be in his business or at home, he has the capacity to be with it. He has the capacity to show up in this grounded presence because he's not afraid of feeling uncomfortable emotion. A psychologically immature man, in comparison, when dealing with difficult situations, he's going to have a reaction to it. He hasn't learned how to be with difficult experience himself, so he's likely to make the situation worse. Or when people bring stuff to him, it feels uncomfortable in his body because he hasn't learned to deal with it yet. Therefore, he pushes it away, rejects it, dismisses it, and therefore generally isn't able to help, serve, and support in moments like that. Point 2 is he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He has a firm commitment inside of himself to be a man of integrity, to actually embody the things that he's talking about so that they're not just some intellectual ideas, but he actually lives them. He lives by them. He has a moral code upon which he enacts in his life, and he walks with a level of self-respect because of this. This builds an internal confidence inside of him because he is proving to himself over and over again that he is a man of his word, that he does what he says he's going to do. And this builds a robustness inside of himself. It feels like to someone else that you respect him, but that feeling that other people are having of respect isn't forced. It's actually coming from the fact that he deeply respects himself. When a mature man falls off track, he prioritizes getting back on track, and he has the skills to be able to do that. He's learned the skills of communication. And again, he can hold himself emotionally, so he's not making himself bad or wrong or guilty or feeling shameful for making mistakes. Instead, he knows when he makes a mistake, he knows how to put it back on track, how to have those conversations, and then how to correct his behavior so that he can walk to where he wants to in his life. So the third sign of a psychologically mature man is that he can take constructive feedback well. Why can he do this? Well, he can do this because he's not making meaning. For example, when someone shares about him something constructive, an immature man in that instance will likely make it mean that he's done something wrong, it's not good enough, because there are younger parts that haven't been processed from him being a child, from whether it be from dad or from mum's feedback, where he's feeling like he's not good enough. He feels like he's done something wrong. Maybe in his past he was punished for doing things wrong. Whereas a psychologically mature man has brought that younger boy inside, and he's refathered him essentially inside to come back into a place where there's no guilt and there's no shame for making mistakes. So therefore, when someone gives him feedback in his life, because he's not making himself bad or wrong, he can actually take that feedback and often will appreciate it because he sees that feedback has allowed him to grow. He's not experiencing a negative emotion. He's not experiencing any subtle or overt triggers when that feedback comes in. Therefore, he can receive it for what it is, support, help to grow. That allows him to really create this upward spiral in his life because he can get feedback from all the people in his life. It allows him to go on faster, iterative journeys, whereas an immature man is going to halt himself from actually learning and growing because he's not able to get the feedback from outside. So it's such a gift when a man gives himself this. Again, it comes back down to inner emotional processing, inner emotional fitness. He's done the work to be able to bring the little boy inside and refather him, maybe to the father that he didn't get, so that when things arise in his life, he can actually receive the feedback, take action, and then really go on this like upward spiral in his life. I think one of the things that we don't recognize in our culture is that, and I didn't recognize it for so long, is that as long as there are parts of us, like unworked through 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old boys inside of us, until those parts have actually been brought back into connection, then those parts show up in life. And you'll see 40, 50, 60-year-old entrepreneurs, athletes, business owners, people in positions of power who are still acting from that place. And there's nothing bad or wrong about it, per se, not very helpful often. But what's actually showing up there when your partner is speaking to you and you're getting triggered, or when something's happening at work and you don't have the capacity to process it, often what's happening there is there are younger parts showing up that never had this support, safety, trust, empowerment that they needed in order to learn how to do that. But the beauty is we can actually learn how to bring those younger parts that arise and show up in our life. So it's like, do they even exist? Well, yes. It's like there are people in political positions of power who are still having a little boy show up. There are people who are running businesses who are prevented from going to the next level because there are younger parts showing up. So there's a real gift that we can give ourselves by essentially being the father and the mother that we never had. And we learn how in our nervous systems to bring all of those parts into the present moment. That's the healing journey. That's the reconciliation that allows for the maturity itself to happen, because we're maturing the parts. Because what is maturity? Well, it's that we have grown up and that we have shown up in our lives. But in order to do that, what we're really talking about is helping the little boy or the little girl inside of us to grow up, to show up in our lives. And that often requires us to become the parent inside of ourselves that we never had, so that we learn how to regulate difficult emotions, so that we can feel states of anxiousness or stress, the activation part of the nervous system, and we can bring it back into connection. We can ground it and bring it back into connection. We can feel states of deactivation, shutdown, procrastination, depression, and we can learn how to bring that up and back into connection. And as the nervous system learns how to do that, those younger parts come back into the present moment. And if you do that enough, you get enough reps in, then eventually that becomes the primary state, the primary way that you're living, and you're no longer afraid of states of stress. When people are bringing stuff to you, you're no longer afraid of it. Or when things are happening that you want to run away from, you have the capacity inside to come back so that you can actually show up to what's happening in your life. That's the opportunity here, and that's the development that we're actually talking about when we talk about a psychologically mature man and or woman.